Welcome, baseball romantics, back to the Romantic About Baseball podcast. This is Jason with you, and as usual, I have my cohort Bruce joining us, and we also have a very special guest joining us today. We have Greg Pryor, former Major League Baseball player. He played with the Texas Rangers, the Chicago White Sox, and the Kansas City Royals, and was part of the 1985 Kansas City Royals World Series championship team. So we are very excited to have Greg joining us. Greg, I just want to thank you, first of all, for taking the time to come on and give us a talk and let us hear your thoughts on the current game and also talk a little bit about your career. And I'm going to just start off with a very basic question, Greg, and a simple one. Tell us about how you kind of got to the major leagues to begin with and your journey to becoming a Major League Baseball player. Just give us a little story behind that.
Well, let me start real quick, and I'm going to hopscotch right through to when I got called up to big leagues. I'll make it very quick for the fans because as they will find out if they keep listening to me, I like to tell short stories that seem interesting. When I was 7 years old, I went to Cleveland Stadium up the Mistake on the Lake in Cleveland, and my dad took me up there. I was like 9 years old, and I saw the Yankees and the Indians in a doubleheader, and I was like hooked. When I walked in, it was 80,000 seats. I walked into that place. I was like, oh, man, I was a country kid. I lived in Rootstown, Ohio. This is the biggest thing I've ever been in my life. I mean, I'm looking down there. I see balls going over the fence. I see the infielders throwing. I said, what is happening? And then that was in like 59. And in 78, I go back in there as a major leaguer with the Chicago White Sox 20 years later, around that. And it was like a different world to me because I was at work, earning money, hitting that baseball, catching that baseball, throwing that baseball, and whatever. And the lines were on the field for the Browns game, the football lines for the Cleveland Browns, because they played in the same stadium. And I'm thinking, man, this outfield is terrible. It didn't look like anything like this when I came here as a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old. So, yeah. But I grew up in Ohio. I was playing Little League in Akron, Ohio, and Thurman Munson was playing Little League in Canton at the same time. And then he and I met in spring training with the Yankees in 77. But when I was in high school, I wasn't that good. My dad had faith in me. I wasn't drafted. I had no scholarships to play baseball in college. And my dad went to the coach at Florida Southern, and he said, give Greg a scholarship or I'm taking my older son out of your school. And by the older son, my brother Jeff was 8-0 as a freshman. And he was the best pitcher that they had. So my dad comes home after talking to the coach at Florida Southern. He goes, hey, Greg, I got you a scholarship. I'm thinking, Florida Southern wants me, Dad? So it wasn't until after I graduated that the coach told me that my dad bribed him to get me down there. But I was a double All-American my junior and senior year. I got drafted by the Senators. I was in Miami working out with the Pan American team with Bobby Winkles, and I wanted to play on the Pan American team really bad because they were going to go play Cuba, and I wasn't going to play in the big leagues, but I could maybe play on the Pan American team. And I went to Bobby Winkles, who was the head coach of the Pan American team. I said, Coach, I got drafted by the Senators. I could be a pro or I can go with your team. I said, I don't know what to do. Well, I didn't know that he was going to take his second baseman from Arizona State instead of me. And he goes, son, I think you ought to go play pro ball. So I signed a contract with Washington. And still no ever any inclination of playing in the major leagues. Got to the minor leagues and played it through until the big thing that happened to me in the minor leagues that really got me over the hurdle was in 76. I was not invited to Major League spring training for the Rangers for the third time. I had been to two previous spring trainings, but not in 76. And I called the farm director, Hal Skeller, in Texas. And I said, how come you didn't invite me to Major League spring training? I said, how do you expect me to make the team? He goes, Pryor, I'm going to mail you your scouting reports. So they mailed me my original scouting report. And in the scouting report, it said, all tools are short. You could release for me, AAA at best. And he mailed that to me. Here I was in 1970. I was 27 years old. So I said, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Because either in baseball, you're either a suspect or a prospect. There's no in between, Right. So I that was in February of 76. Well, in June of '76, I'm in Tucson, Arizona, playing AAA ball with Rich Donnelly. He was the manager of my Sacramento AAA team for the Rangers, and he called me in his office. He's, I got good news and bad news. The good news is you're going to the big leagues. This is 4 months after they said I wasn't good enough, right?
Yeah.
So, and there was no bad news. I mean, he told me I was going to be up there for 2 weeks, but I tell you what, getting that call to go to the big leagues in '76 in June, I was so happy. And as I look back on it, for all the people that wonder about players like me who kind of was lucky to get to the big leagues in a way, it was easier to get there than it was to stay there.
Yeah.
Staying there is hard. It was very hard because you make more money. The travel's better. The lights are better. The infield's better. The music's better. I like to say the women's better, but my wife, 46 years, probably wouldn't like that. But I'm telling you, I got there in '76, 4 months after they told me I wasn't going to hack it, and that really meant a lot to me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
I can't help but notice, is that a World Series championship ring on your finger?
Yeah. That's my World Series ring there.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't play these days, because today's rings are like this big,
They're huge. Yeah.
and this one's just big enough. I don't want it any bigger.
You can actually wear that one. I don't know if you can wear the ones today. Yeah, they're kind of ridiculous.
Kevin Seitzer's a buddy, and was a hitting coach for the Braves for many years, and now he's with Seattle, I think. And when the Braves won the World Series, we were at a cards show here in Kansas City, and he brought his ring, and I had my ring, and I was embarrassed to put my ring up next to his ring. Has apartments to it, He can flip it up,
Yeah.
But anyway,
I have a replica ring. I'm a Braves fan. I have a replica ring. It doesn't do the opening thing, but it's huge. It's heavy.
Yeah, I know.
Crazy. Yeah. Bruce, do you have questions you wanted to ask?
I do. Yeah. So since we were talking about a little bit before we jumped in about your book, The Day the Yankees Made Me Shave. Jason and I were talking a little bit before about how, in spite of the picture, you didn't actually play for the Yankees. Can you tell us a little bit about that story, how that came to be, and you could tell us about your Mustache Revolution. We would love to hear about that as well.
Definitely want to hear about the Mustache Revolution.
Yeah. We'll tell you about that Mustache Revolt. I was a Ranger or Washington Senator, and then in '72, the Senators became Rangers. They moved the franchise, and I became a Ranger overnight. And I played for the Rangers '72 through '76. Well, right before the '77 season, I was expecting to go and compete for a job for the Rangers as a starting shortstop. And I get a phone call from Dan O'Brien, the GM of the Rangers, and he goes, "Pryor, we just traded you to the New York Yankees." And I was like shocked. It's like, Yankees? Me? Why? Because the Yankees had just won the American League pennant the year before, '76. And then in '77, they lost 4 straight to the Reds, right? So here I am going to spring training with the '76 American League champions in Fort Lauderdale with Reggie and Thurman and Catfish and Nettles. I mean, it was really a nervous time for me because I didn't know any of those guys, and I had to go down there and try to prove myself. Well, I had a mustache when I showed up, and so did Reggie, and so did Thurman, and so did Catfish, and in spring training in '75, I was with Billy Barton in Texas, and he was the manager of the Rangers, and he gave me he was very friendly to me in '75. Well, in '77, in spring training in Lauderdale, I think Billy Martin looked the other way when I came around. I knew early on that Billy didn't want to keep me. And a good trivia question for those baseball people out there would be, who were the 2 backup infielders for the Yankees in '77? We got Nettles at third, we got Dent at second, we got Randolph at second, we got Dent at short. Who were the 2 backup infielders for the New York Yankees? Well, one of them was Fred Chicken Stanley, who was a shortstop in '76, but the other guy, his name was George Zeber. So George Zeber made that team out of '77 with the Yankees instead of Greg Pryor. I played 10 years, and I think he played 1.5. I'll just leave it at that. And then I got they when they sent me out to AAA, the farm director of the Yankees he called me. He goes, Pryor, we're going to send you to AAA. I said, you think so, huh? Because this would have been my third year in AAA, and I was 28. And he goes, by the way, before you report to Syracuse, you have to shave your mustache. And I'm thinking, man, I said, I mean, they took my manhood and just trashed it. Because here I'm going to my third year in AAA, and before I can collect my $80 a day in Syracuse, I got to shave my mustache. I took that Schick. It's the first time I've shaved my mustache in the years. I took that Schick razor and that Barbasol shave cream, and I shaved it off. And every time I went like this, I said, "I'm going to get you back. I'm going to get you back." You know, I was going to get revenge. So I go to Syracuse. I called all the guys in the clubhouse early in the season. And I said, dudes, I said, I want out of here. I want to get traded. I want to get released. And I said, I'm going to grow a mustache and I need support. How many of you guys are man enough to grow a mustache with me? And they all raised their hand, even if they didn't want one. So I had them all sign a paper. I took it into Pete Ward, his office. He was my manager in Syracuse. And I laid it down in front of him. I said, Pete, we're all growing mustaches. He goes, Pryor, you're making me look really bad. I got to report this to the front office. I said, so you tell them that Pryor is not going to shave his mustache and they can release me or trade me. I don't care. Either one. That's what I want. But you can only do that if you're a damn good player, you know? I knew I was pretty good because I was hitting third. I was playing shortstop every day for Syracuse. And I took my shot. And well, 3 weeks later, the Yankees changed the rule and they allowed mustaches for all the minor leaguers. Nice. So all the guys on the team are coming up to me saying, Pryor, we love you, we love you. And here I was still 28. I was still broke. I was still in AAA, but I had a mustache. Big deal, you know.
That's awesome.
So as I was telling you right before we started the show that in 76 and 77 is when free agency started happening to Major League Baseball. And I was one of those lucky guys that had some free agency rights in 76 and 77. And Marvin Miller called me in Syracuse. He was our union leader at that time. And he goes, Pryor, I just want to let you know that if you play your season out there in Syracuse, you can become a free agent in November. Well, the Yankees had traded for me, not knowing I could be a free agent. So when they found it out, oh my gosh, they got on the phone because they traded Sandy Alomar Sr. for me. And, you know, he was a pretty well-known player. And the Yankees called me and they said, hey, Pryor, we need you to fly to New York. We need to sign you to a contract. And I'm thinking, oh, I couldn't grow a mustache, but now you want me to sign a contract, huh? They were squirming because, you know, they were embarrassed that they traded for me and I could leave. So I talked to Gene Locklear, who was a former Cincinnati Red and a Yankee. He was on my Syracuse team. And he told me, hey, Pryor, go ahead and go. But don't sign with the Yankees because they don't need you. They got Nettles, Dent, and Randolph. They don't need you. And I knew it. So I fly to New York. I go up to Gabe Paul's office, right next to Steinbrenner's office. And Gabe Paul offered me a 2-year contract. It would have got me way out. I was broke. He would have got me way out of debt. I was going to get paid more than the minimum. And they were going to call me up to the big leagues. And I'm thinking, oh, man, Yankees. So I said, I don't think I can sign. So he went and got Steinbrenner. Steinbrenner came out of his office. He walked right up to me. He goes, Mr. Paul said you have a problem with the 2-year contract offer we just made you. I said, well, sir, I need to know that I'm going to be able to work somewhere. I said, you guys are loaded. He goes, oh, Pryor, we got plans for you. We got plans for you. And I knew they didn't. They just want to put me on a bus from New York to Syracuse, right? Yeah. So I turned it down, and Steinbrenner, it's in my book. Steinbrenner called me a dumbass to my face, and I write the story in my book, and I turned it down, and so I'm on my way back to Syracuse, thinking that I could have been out of debt. I'd be in the big leagues with the Yankees, because Steinbrenner said, Pryor, do you know what it's going to be like to put the Yankee name on your resume the rest of your life? And I said, no, I don't really know that, but I started to think, what if nobody else wants me? Yeah. You know, because I went through the draft. The White Sox was one of 5 teams that drafted me. And then my agent was Steve Greenberg. He and Hank Greenberg were really close when Hank Greenberg was playing. And Steve Greenberg became an agent. And Steve called me up in Orlando, and he goes, Pryor, he says, Steve Greenberg. And I had known Steve. And he goes, I'd like to be your agent. I think the White Sox could use you. So he got me a 1-year contract in Chicago in '78. I got more money from the White Sox than I got from the Yankees for 2 years. And also,
Nice.
I had free agency after my first year in the big leagues. So I was going to be a free agent 2 years in a row, and I had a chance to go play in the big leagues. So that's my quick story about the Mustache Revolt. And then, so just in order to sell more books, I put my Yankee picture on the front of my book.
Brilliant. That's
Well,
a brilliant.
No, but here's I also got a cover. I have a for all the Royals fans out there.
Yeah.
I have a book
There you
cover.
go.
So I covered up the Yankee picture with the Royals picture.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. That's the greatest revolt since the American Revolution. Well done. Well done. That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
I never imagined that a mustache could mean so much.
And I kind of think it's a badge of honor to have been called a dumbass by George Steinbrenner. I really
Well,
do.
hey, but
Yeah.
it's funny you say that or bring it up again because in '81 we had a 50-day strike in Major League Baseball. I was one of the union guys with the White Sox, and on and off we were 51 days we didn't have games, and I'm out at Arlington Racetrack, and Steinbrenner was a big horse guy, and I just decided to go to races with my wife, and I looked on the program, and he was one of his horses was in the race, and she saw him on the track. And she said, "Greg, go say hi to Steinbrenner." I said, "Oh, no way." Yes. So she made me go say hi to him. So I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, Mr. Steinbrenner." I said, "It's Greg Pryor." I said, "Remember me? I used to work for you." He goes, "Pryor." He says, "We should never have let you go." So
Nice.
it went full circle.
Full circle. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
So I have a question. I mentioned this. We were talking before we started, but I got to ask you about Bo Jackson and playing with Bo
Oh.
Jackson. Tell me about Bo as a player and just being around Bo Jackson for that time in Kansas City.
Well, let me preface that by saying this: that when I grew up, my dad was a football player. He played the leather helmet, no face mask. He played at Wake Forest. He was a fullback. So I grew up with the fullback, and my dad could really lay the leather to me whenever he felt like it. He was a rough guy, and I love my dad. But then he took me to watch Jimmy Brown play and run for the Browns. And Jimmy Brown became my hero when I lived in Akron. Rocky Colavito was my baseball hero. Jimmy Brown was my football hero because Jimmy Brown used to run into guys instead of running away from them. He would run them over, and it was good. Well, bring on Bo Jackson in 1986. He lost his senior year of eligibility at Auburn because he visited Tampa Bay against the rules, and he got upset with Tampa Bay because he thinks that they allowed him to lose his eligibility because he loved baseball. Well, he signs with the Royals for $500,000 after he wins a Heisman, and in '86 they called him up to the big leagues, and I was like, what? Bo Jackson's coming here? Well, Bo showed up in our clubhouse, and not the first day, but not too long after that, he takes autographed pictures of his Heisman picture and he puts them on all of our chairs. And Willie Wilson runs up to him. He says, "Get that crap off my chair, Bo. This is the big leagues. This ain't no college crap."
Nice.
And let me tell you, just to make it short to the point, I don't think there's ever been a better athlete in the world in sports history that could match the overall athletic ability of Bo Jackson. And I know I'm saying a lot there, but these people that I like to argue about Jim Thorpe or Wilt Chamberlain or Tiger Woods or Deion Sanders, no. Bo, he one day he came over to my locker. He was such a humble guy. He wasn't very egotistical, even though he could have been.
Yeah.
He came over to my locker and he sat down right next to my locker, and I'm thinking, why would this guy be sitting next to my locker? And and I had a picture of an oil well in my locker that I had part of in Ohio, and he looked at that oil well and he goes, and I'm not going to make fun of his stuttering, but he didn't talk as well then as he talks now. Anyway, he goes, "Pryor, what are you doing playing baseball?" I said, what do you mean? He said, you got an oil well. I said, well, Bo, no, I'm wondering why you're playing baseball. I said, you got $500,000 for the Royals. You could have taken 7 million and gone to Tampa Bay. And he looked at me. He goes, I'm just waiting for the right time. He didn't want to. He saw a chance to play to go to the World Series champion, which we won in '85,
Yeah.
and he was around us. He got the best of both worlds. The only problem I had with what happened to Bo was this: how in the world could the Kansas City Chiefs allow Bo Jackson to be drafted by Oakland ahead of the Chiefs?
Yeah.
We could have had him going right across the street.
Would have been awesome. Yeah.
I wish I would have. I don't know if that story's ever come out as to how Bo Jackson didn't stay in Kansas City to play for the Chiefs, but he didn't. He went to Oakland and got hurt there running. But what I tell people when they argue about the best athlete, after his hip replacement, Bo Jackson hit 37 major league home runs. There's nobody playing in the big leagues with the replacement hip. Nobody, right. And none of those athletes that they want to compare to ever played with a broken hip in the big leagues either. So it's arguable about who the greatest athlete was, but in my opinion, you didn't want to play catch with Bo because you might get hurt.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a great story. Yeah, it's a shame he had the hip injury when he did, but yeah. Bruce, what else you got, man?
Well, I think since we touched on some Kansas City Royals stuff, and since Bo Jackson, much like Greg, did some time in Chicago, I think maybe can you tell us a little bit, Greg, about that disco demolition night?
Yeah, that's great.
Let's bring that back into modern baseball conversation because it was definitely an event.
Well, people are forgetting about it. I talk to young people and I say, you ever heard of disco demolition? And they say, disco what? So they don't even know there was disco music. Some of these people run around now. So when I signed with Chicago, it was with Bill Veeck. And Bill Veeck, for those who might not know, he was like the Barnum and Bailey owner of baseball. He had promotions like every night. I would run through belly dancers to go onto the field sometimes, They would have antique car night. There'd be antique cars riding around the field a half an hour before the game. So you never knew what was going to happen in Comiskey Park. Well, every time we come to the ballpark, something new was going on. It wasn't no big deal to us. So this night, I said, "What's this promotion they got tonight?" They said, "Well, it's anti-disco night," and I kind of like disco. Saturday Night Fever. It was kind of like that. I'm thinking, why are they going to blow up disco? Well, I didn't know that Steve Dahl, the rock and roll guy in Chicago, got with Mike Veeck, the owner of the son of the owner, Bill Veeck, and they had this promotion. If they brought a 33 1/3 record to the game, that got in for a reduced price. So they collected the records at the gate, and we had a doubleheader. We had 2 games against the Tigers that night. And in about the 7th inning of the first game, and I was playing shortstop first game, all the fans started showing up in the first game, and the first game started like 4:30. So at like 6:30, the fans, it's full. You couldn't get in. It was packed. And there's banners up. You can go look at them on the internet. There's banners up. Disco sucks. Disco sucks all over the place. And I'm not a shortstop. And the aura of that stadium was not Major League aura. They weren't watching the game. Right. Some of them, that's the only time they've ever been to a Major League park, and probably the last time they've been to a Major League park. So I'm thinking, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, wow, this is really interesting. Well, I didn't know that they were going to blow up these records between games. So after the first game was over, I'm in at my locker getting ready for the second game. They'll go play shortstop. And they had piled up all these records in center field on top of dynamite. And at the appropriate moment, somebody, I think Steve Dahl, the disc jockey, says, "Okay, let's blow up disco." Well, they pushed a button, and you can go and look at the video. The smoke cloud went up, and all the records were blown up all over the field.
Yeah.
Well, it blew the fans out of the stands because they came onto the stands. They came out of the stands on the field, and nobody could get them off. They decided they were going to take over the field. Thousands and thousands of fans decided to join the party. They started running around like they were a Major League Baseball player. They were just so happy. Well, some of them started tearing the field up. They tore home plate up. They started tearing the turf up. It was a mess, and they couldn't get them off the field. There wasn't enough policemen to get them off the field.
Yeah.
So I'm at my locker when this is going on, and I saw the starting pitcher walk by my locker, and I asked him. I said, Kenny, I said, you're pitching, aren't you? He goes, Greg, you need to go out there and look. There's a riot going on outside. I said, there is a riot? So I grabbed my pants. I'm trying to run out to see what's going on. Well, the fans had taken everything out of our dugout. Anything that was all the gloves and all the bats were going out of our dugout. And there was a bunch of kids that were trying to storm our clubhouse. That's how crazy it was.
Wow.
And our equipment manager was going to hit him with the bat. He had a bat over his head. He was going to hit him. And the kids, I was right behind him, and the kids were looking like crazy at him. And they finally figured out they didn't want to get hit in the head with the bat because he was going to beat them. So they backed up. He closed the door, and we were prisoners in our clubhouse for like the next hour. They brought out the mounted police. We heard the hooves of the horses. The Chicago mounted police came by our locker, and when it was all over, we went outside, and it was like somebody bombed our Comiskey Park. We forfeited the second game to the Tigers, and Mr. Beck, I felt so sorry for him because it was one of those promotions that just blew up in his face. You know what I'm saying?
Literally. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic. I've seen footage of it all my life. It's a crazy scene. It's absolutely crazy.
And I have to say that playing in the Pine Tar game in Yankee Stadium was almost as eerie. And I played in both those games. I'm the only player alive that played in both the Disco Demolition game and the Pine Tar game.
Yeah.
And the Pine Tar game was so weird because when George Brett hit that home run and Billy Martin challenged the bat because he said there's too much pine tar on it, and the umpires made a stupid decision to call him out. They should have just let the American League president hear the Yankees protest. The Yankees could have protested it. But I wouldn't have gotten the game if that had happened because not only did George Brett get thrown out, and Greg Pryor finished the game in Yankee Stadium 6 weeks later.
Nice. Yeah. I feel like we'd be remiss. There's probably Royals fans that'll listen to this and say, how have you not asked him about George Brett yet? So do you have any George Brett stories or what it was like just to play with George?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for asking. When I was with the White Sox as an infielder, George with the Royals, I played against him. And, he'd be on second base most of the time. And I'm thinking, Pryor, you're going to go over and say hi to this guy? And I'm thinking, no, I'm not going to go say hi to George Brett. So for 4 years with the White Sox, whenever I played against George, either in Roll Stadium in Kansas City or Comiskey Park in Chicago, if George is on second or third base and I was next to him, I wouldn't say one word to him. So I get traded to the Royals the last few days of spring training of '82. And when I met with Sherholtz, the general manager of the Royals, and I said, Mr. Sherholtz, I said, yeah, Greg, we just traded for you. And I'm thinking, I'm a Royal? I don't like the Royals. And I didn't like any of them. It wasn't only George, it was all of them. I didn't like any of them. So the next, I was with the White Sox. White Sox train in Sarasota and the Royals train in Fort Myers. So Sherholtz says, can you show up tomorrow? I said, yeah. So I showed up the next morning at the Royals Stadium. I got my White Sox bag, carrying it into the Royals clubhouse. And I was like, oh, and nobody said anything to me. Nobody, because I didn't care. I mean, I was like, it was probably one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever done is walk into that evil clubhouse of the Kansas City Royals. So I'm walking. And then I got a locker, and George Brett comes over. He goes, Greg Pryor? I said, yeah. I said, he goes, we trade for you? I said, yeah, last night. He goes, let me ask you a question. whenever I was in Comiskey Park or Royal Stadium, how come you never said hello to me when I got on base? I said, because I hated you. That's why I hated you. I wasn't gonna lie. I mean, what was I gonna say?
Yeah.
I'm just not. I had to tell him the truth.
Yeah.
I told him. He goes, really? I said, yeah. I said, hey, if we were gonna fight you, I was gonna hit you first, man. If we had to fight against you guys. He goes, what do you think of me now? I said, I love you now.
That's
But
fantastic. Yeah.
he and I were very close because when he didn't play, I played third base, and
Yeah.
it was very challenging for me to have to play for George because arguably one of the best, if not the best, third baseman of all time, and he was such a great leader for me. He inspired me. He and Frank White and Willie Wilson and Amos Otis, guys that were in All Stars, they all inspired me. So when I got with the Royals, I had my best season probably in '84, and it was a lot of fun to be able to be on a division winner. And I played 121 games in '84, and we lost to the Tigers in the playoffs. They beat us 3-0, and they went on to beat the Padres in the World Series.
That was a pretty good Tigers team, if I recall.
But here's a real quick story about George. We're playing. It's a wet game at home. We're playing the Tigers, and George gets a ground ball at third base, and it went off his index finger, and it's bleeding. So the trainer runs out to see how it is, and it was 2 outs, and somebody flew out. So George is running in with blood coming out of his finger. And guess who's thinking about going into this wet, dreary, cold game if George can't? Me.
Right. Yeah.
Because I'm going to go to third. And I needed to know. I wanted to know. So I'm following George around, trying to get the word, as early as I could. And he goes in and starts playing cards at the table in the clubhouse with his finger open and bleeding. And I walked up and I said, dude, you going back in? He goes, well, I'm going to go out and try to throw. If I can't throw, I'm coming out if I can't throw. So here I have to wait for George to tell me whether he can throw or not. It's like an hour rain delay. So one of the hazards of being a backup player, right?
Right.
So George goes out and he throws the ball and he says, I'm okay. Well, he was the first hitter of the inning, the bottom of the inning. And he was up and he had a home run. He had his finger out like this on the bat. he had a home run his first at bat with the finger sticking out like that.
Nice. He could hit with 9 fingers. Yeah, that's awesome.
Pretty amazing guy.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Bruce, I have one more question, but if you got anything else you want to go for?
But yeah, so Greg, so I think that everyone wants to know a little bit about what it's like to be involved in the postseason, what I like to say is nobody remembers necessarily who loses the World Series, but heck, it's still a heck of an accomplishment to get there. And for folks like myself that did play at a pretty high level and never achieved anything close to that, can you tell us a little bit about what that meant to you then, what it means to you now, and just give us some sense of that.
Yeah, and just to remind the people that are listening that this is the 40th year of our '85 World Series win, and we're going to have a reunion in Kansas City the second week in May. It's a Royals versus the Cardinals, and they're bringing back all the '85 guys, and they're bringing for the 40th reunion, and they're bringing back the 15 guys for the 10-year reunion, same weekend. So anybody listening, come out to Royal Stadium. But it's a combination of a lot of things that happen to experience a World Series, and just start with in college I was on a national championship team, and I was pretty happy about that. That was a big thrill. Nothing compared to World Series. And then I go to Chicago for my 4 years there, and I really kind of became an apprentice. I was in an apprenticeship because I hadn't really played that much third base until I got to Chicago, and they thought enough about me to trade for me and bring me over to Kansas City to play some third base when George couldn't play. And I got to be around a lot of guys that had been in the playoffs and postseason. The Royals played against Oakland. Remember the old Oakland Royals series? Yankees, Royals and the Yankees. Royals were in the 80 World Series. They lost to the Phillies in the 80 World Series. And when I got there, there was a lot of scar tissue. And I say scar tissue in a positive way because when you lose and you come close, you don't forget it. And Quisenberry and Willie Wilson and Frank White, George Brett, Amos, guys like that, they were in more pain than I was when the Tigers beat us in '84, 3 straight games and beat the Padres in the World Series. We knew we were close. I thought we were close, but what happened was amazing. And I'm going to give a lot of credit to John Sherholtz because back in '85, we traded for Lonnie Smith. We got Lonnie Smith to come to Kansas City. They cultivated Brett Saberhagen, Danny Jackson, Mark Gubicza, Buddy Black. I mean, come on, we had some stylish pitching. They got Steve Balboni. He every move that they got Sundberg to catch for that season. Sundberg came in. So I say the general manager Hauser was basically he was part of the deal, but Sherholtz is the one that made these deals to get these really good players. And the last player I'm going to mention is Omar Marino. Omar Marino came in September when Willie got hurt and drove in 13 runs in September. Without Omar Marino, we wouldn't be talking about a World Series right now. So it was even more fun to be able to come back when we were down 3-1 with Toronto. They went up 3-1 on us, and we won 3 games in a row to beat them. And then we got down 3-1 to the Cardinals in the World Series. We won a game in St. Louis, and Danny Jackson pitched a great game in the 5th game. And then Dane Orge got the base hit in the 6th game, and Don Denkinger called Orr safe at first. And thank goodness for Don Denkinger. So, and the next night we got 11 runs and won the World Series. And even though I only played in 1 game, I feel when you're with the team like I was that was my 4th year in Kansas City. You feel part of the team because you are, and you've proven to your fellow teammates that you can help and you're an asset. And that's all I wanted to do, and that's what I did. And I can't wait to see my teammates coming up here next May when they all come back to Kansas City.
Yeah, that's going to be fantastic. That's going to be awesome. For our younger listeners that don't know, John Sherholtz built the '90s Braves as well. So pretty good GM there. Sherholtz.
Yeah, he. It's funny. On the back of my book here, I got 3 testimonies, and John Sherholtz is one of them. Tony LaRusse is one, and George Brett's another one. So I called them all up and I said, "Hey, would you guys give me an endorsement for my book?" And I'm kind of happy I did that. And LaRusse wrote the forward to my book. I should mention Tony because he's a Hall of Fame manager, and he's won a lot of games in his career. And I was in his first his first win as a major league manager in Toronto when he first broke in, and he wrote the forward to my book. And I really enjoyed watching his success over the years.
Yeah, that's a pretty good trio of endorsements you got there. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Not bad. Yeah. It's not helping book sales because everybody.
We'll see if we can help you out.
Yeah. You guys
get it on the page. Yeah.
Let them know.
But my last question would be just your general thoughts on the game today as compared to when you played. Is it better, worse, just different? Just your general thoughts on where we're at now in 2025.
Well, we'll talk about the money first because I made good money when I played. And but these guys nowadays, they're never going to have to work. Some of them, and you guys know that work can be one of the more meaningful things of your life. And these guys are making so much that they will never have to work again. So I feel kind of sorry for them that they're going to miss out on the value of working. I'm still working, and my wife and I we own our own health and nutrition company. And we work every day. I'm 75 and she's 70, and we still work. So that's one. And secondly, the old school part of the game I miss. And I think it started with the following. When I played, we would play with the same baseball like 3 straight innings. It'd be so dirty.
Yeah.
You could tell the umpire to check the ball. You don't see that now.
Right.
When I played, if I was the first hitter of an inning and I knew the ball was dirty, I'd let the pitcher warm up with it the whole time. And then as soon as the umpire's ready to call the first pitch, I'd step out. I said, "Excuse me, can you check that dirty ball real quick for me?" And they would look at me like, "You scumbag, why are you doing this,
Yeah.
Pryor?" Well,
Yeah.
I would walk over right next to the umpire, and I would stand there right there with him, and I knew it was dirty. It's dirtier. It's darker than that book, and they'd have to throw it out. But what happened was the pitcher got a brand new ball,
Yeah.
you know, and so that's like when when the ball hits the plate now, it goes in the dirt. They throw it out of the game. It's like, oh, and only because they want to speed the game up. I think it's become because of guys like me that they have instant replay now because they want to speed the game up, you know.
Right. Right.
Yeah, they seem to throw the balls out for everything now, right? Every
yeah.
other pitch.
But
Yeah.
I think the thing that really got me that I really don't like is when they put a runner at second base to try to get a result in the
Yeah.
game because I hit a walk-off home run one time in the bottom of the 16th, and I don't think that's ever going to happen again. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, and here's a good example of why it shouldn't have been done. The Royals are playing Cleveland in Cleveland, and our hitter walked, our first hitter. Well, the next guy bunted him over. No. Sorry, we had a runner at second. It was the top of the 10th. Runner at second. They bunted him to third. Sacrifice fly, got him home. We're up by 1 run with 2 outs. Next guy walks, gets thrown out, stealing second. So we scored a run without even an at bat.
Yeah.
You explain to me how that would happen, except
Yeah.
maybe 4 walks, but that would only happen in the bottom of the inning. How
Right.
can you get a run in the top of the inning with no at bats?
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you're right. We may never see that again. That's my least favorite rule change by far. I'm
yeah.
not a fan.
Well, yeah. Anyway, but here's the thing I like about it. The game. The ball's still hard. It would hurt you if it hits you. It's going to come 120 down to third base. There's no way you can get around it. And the pitchers are going to throw at your head if they feel like it. You know, there's still danger in the game, and I don't like the no slide rule at second. I got knocked so many times in my career that when they took away the takeout slide, I was like, wait a minute, that's not fair to me. I had to protect myself. But I go out and I look at the game differently because of it's different than when I played. But I kind of get over the things I don't like because I like the art of the ballet of catching a ground ball and throwing it to first in 4 seconds. It's very, very, very difficult to do to make that play or turn into when the game's on the line. You know,
Yeah.
You can't change that.
That's right.
You know, you can't run away from it. So now and then I just wish that I guess guys I just want them to. I mean, this guy for Toronto that signed for all that money. I mean, can you imagine coming to work knowing you're going to get paid whether you strike out 4 times or not and make 40,000 for that game? I mean, whatever he's going to make. I mean, I don't know where they get the adrenaline. Some of them because a lot of most of my career I was a suspect. You know, I didn't have the cushion. But anyway, that's my short take on the game.
I think it's great. Yeah, that puts a bow on. The essence of the game hasn't changed. It's still a batter versus a pitcher, and you got to put the bat on the ball, right? So that's one reason I love baseball. It's the core of it's still the same as it was when Babe Ruth played, right? It's still the same basic game. So,
I get a kick out of watching these hitting instructors on YouTube. They've never had to face a 95-mile-an-hour fastball in their life, and they're telling everybody how to hit. I mean, they're doing. They must be making money doing it because they have no idea. I mean. If any young hitters are watching, if you have a knack for hitting when you're young, you develop your own style. Don't let nobody tell you need to change styles. If you're a hitter when you're 5 or 6 or 7, just play the game, have fun, and if you're good enough, you'll adjust to the pitchers because that's who makes you a good hitter. You can't hit unless somebody pitches, and if he's too tough, then you got to get stronger. You got to change your swing. Okay. It's simple as that. It's not complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. Bruce, did you have anything you wanted to wrap up with, or?
I just want to thank you, Greg, for coming, being a part of this. Really enjoyed talking to you. Really enjoyed hearing your stories. It was absolutely fantastic. I am looking forward to being out at the K in June. I have tickets to a couple of games out there. Never seen a game out there, so I'm really looking forward to being out there. And your stories just make me more excited to come out and see what's going on. I'm sorry
Yeah.
I won't be there for the reunion, but I'll
That's
be there in
okay.
June, right after Alex Gordon goes into the Royals Hall of Fame. We're there the next day. So
Yeah,
I'm really looking for that.
I was number 4. I got number 4 on my ring, and he's they're retiring his number, you know.
Nice.
So number 4 is going, and guess who is gone as number 11 in Chicago, which I used to be. Number 11 with Chicago White Sox. Number retired.
I don't know. Who is that?
Louis Aparicio.
Oh,
wow.
okay.
Wow.
See, you guys
Yeah,
are
we didn't
way
get
too
that.
you're
Didn't
way
get
too
that.
young. But I told my wife that I would mention my nutrition company real quick to all the
Absolutely.
listeners, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Here's a couple of my products that we offer in my company. It's called Lift and Mind. And let me give you the website, because I've been doing
please
this.
do.
I've been doing this 30 years. Go to lifepriority.com. That's LIFE priority.com, and you can visit what I do for a living.
That's
Good,
awesome,
good. And
yeah.
then the book is available at todaytheyankiesmademeshave.com. What else? You know?
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
we'll
right,
put
guys.
all that on there for sure. Thank you, Greg. This was
Thank you,
a
guys.
pleasure, man. Thank you so much.
All
Okay,
right.
thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, this is Bruce from the Romantic About Baseball podcast. Please take a moment and visit Greg's website for his book at todaytheyankiesmademeshave.com and check out Life Priority at lifepriority.com.